Have you ever met someone who made you question your own thoughts, your own decisions, maybe even your own reality? Someone who always seemed to know exactly what to say, exactly when to say it, and somehow, without realizing it, you ended up doing what they wanted. But here's a question I want you to think about. Have you ever been manipulated and never even noticed it? Manipulation is one of the most fascinating parts of human psychology because it rarely looks like manipulation when it's happening. We imagine manipulators as obvious villains, people who lie, threaten, or control others openly. But in real life, it's usually much quieter than that. Most manipulation happens through influence, emotion, and perception, and that's what makes it so powerful. The human mind is designed to trust shortcuts. Every day, we make thousands of decisions without carefully analyzing each one. We rely on emotions, assumptions, social cues, and instincts. It's efficient. Without these shortcuts, life would be exhausting. But those same shortcuts create opportunities. Opportunities for people to shape our choices without us realizing it. Think about the last time someone made you feel guilty for saying no. Maybe they didn't force you. Maybe they didn't even ask twice. They simply looked disappointed. Suddenly, you felt uncomfortable. You changed your answer. And just like that, your decision was no longer entirely your own. What interests me most is that manipulation often works because it doesn't attack logic first. It targets emotion, fear, guilt, hope, loneliness, the desire to be liked, the fear of being rejected. These emotions are deeply human, and because they're deeply human, they're incredibly predictable. A skilled manipulator doesn't need to control your actions directly. They only need to control how you feel. Once they influence your emotional state, your decisions often follow naturally. And the strange thing is that many manipulators aren't masterminds sitting in dark rooms planning every move. Sometimes they're ordinary people, friends, co-workers, family members, partners. Sometimes they don't even fully realize what they're doing. They've simply learned, through experience, that certain behaviors get them what they want. One of the most common forms of manipulation is making someone doubt themselves, not through obvious insults, not through shouting, but through subtle contradictions, small comments, tiny distortions of reality. Over time, a person begins questioning their own memory, judgment, and perception. When that happens, they become easier to influence because confidence is one of the strongest defenses against manipulation. And once confidence weakens, dependence grows. The more someone doubts themselves, the more they start looking to others for answers. That's where influence becomes control. But manipulation doesn't always come from negative intentions. This is where the conversation becomes uncomfortable, because persuasion exists everywhere. Advertising uses psychology. Politics uses psychology. Social media uses psychology. Even good leaders use psychology. Even parents use psychology. The difference often lies in intention and transparency. Are you helping someone make a decision that benefits them? Or are you steering them towards something that mainly benefits you? That line can sometimes be surprisingly thin. And that's why understanding manipulation isn't just about protecting yourself from bad people. It's also about understanding human nature itself, because all of us influence others every single day. The real question is whether we do it honestly. I've noticed something interesting over the years. The people who are hardest to manipulate are not necessarily the smartest people. They're not always the most educated, and they're not always the strongest. Often, they're simply the most self-aware. They understand their emotions. They recognize their insecurities. They know what triggers them. They know what they fear. And because they know themselves, other people have fewer hidden buttons to push. That's an important lesson. Manipulation becomes easier when we are disconnected from ourselves, when we're desperate for approval, when we're afraid of conflict, when we're lonely, when we're emotionally exhausted. In those moments, we become more vulnerable to anyone offering certainty, validation, or comfort. That's not weakness. It's human nature. In fact, some of the brightest people in history have been manipulated. Intelligence alone doesn't protect us. Awareness does. And awareness starts with a simple habit: pausing. Whenever someone is trying to influence you, pause. Ask yourself, why do I suddenly feel pressure? Why do I feel guilty? Why do I feel afraid? Why do I feel rushed? Who benefits from this decision? Those questions create space between emotion and action. And in that space, clarity often appears. Because manipulation thrives in urgency. It thrives when people react without thinking. It thrives when emotions move faster than reason. The moment you slow down, its power begins to weaken. Another thing worth remembering is that manipulation often reveals itself through patterns, not isolated moments. Anyone can make a mistake. Anyone can say the wrong thing. Anyone can unintentionally hurt someone. But when the same emotional pressure appears again and again, when guilt becomes a tool, when confusion becomes a pattern, when your boundaries are repeatedly ignored, that's usually when a deeper problem exists. The truth is, healthy relationships don't require constant psychological games. Healthy relationships don't make you feel small so someone else can feel powerful. Healthy relationships don't depend on confusion. They depend on trust. And trust grows in clarity, not control. Perhaps the most dangerous thing about manipulation is that it often disguises itself as care, as concern, as love, as guidance. That's why recognizing it can be difficult. The package looks attractive, the message sounds reasonable, the intentions seem positive, but eventually, actions reveal what words try to hide. And that's something I've come to believe more strongly with time. People can hide motives, they can hide emotions, they can hide agendas, but patterns eventually tell the truth. Always. So the next time someone makes you question yourself, pause for a moment. Look beyond the words. Pay attention to how you feel after interacting with them. Do you feel stronger, clearer, more confident? Or do you feel confused, guilty, and dependent? Sometimes the answer to that question reveals more than anything they ever said. Because understanding manipulation isn't really about becoming suspicious of everyone. It's about becoming conscious of yourself. And once you truly understand your own mind, your own emotions, and your own values, you become much harder to control, not because manipulation disappears, but because awareness shines a light on it. And when light enters a dark room, the darkness doesn't fight back. It simply loses its place to hide. If there's one thing worth remembering from this video, it's this. The strongest defense against manipulation isn't intelligence, power, or status. It's self-awareness. Because the better you understand yourself, the harder it becomes for someone else to write your story for you.